Hello everybody, how are you guys doing? This is Rob of Ro2R Review, and today we're going to talk about Metroid. So today, the day this video is being recorded and uploaded, is 1 week to the day until Nintendo's E3 press conference, which actually was just renamed as a Nintendo Direct. Basically, it's just Nintendo Direct E3 2018. Not a very exciting name, but as I joked about a couple of weeks ago, Nintendo always has weird, unexciting names for their E3 presentations. I don't really know why, but it really doesn't matter. It is what it is. As long as they're presenting cool stuff and getting us excited, it's fine. Now, of course, one of the big mysteries of the show and of Nintendo's overall presence at E3 this year is what, if anything, will be happening with Metroid. Are we going to finally see Metroid Prime 4? If they show it to us, what's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? New mechanics, all of these different things. When are we going to play it? That's probably one of the other huge things we're all wondering. And of course, for myself, as a Metroid superfan, as you guys all know, I am dying to have the answers to these questions. And it's really exciting. This is the most exciting time, man. What's going on? We have new Metroid to be excited for, and E3 is coming up. Nintendo's hopefully going to have a great show. They still have a fairly new console on the market. All the stars are aligning for some great stuff, man. I'm super, super excited. But the big thing, and what I wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking with you guys about today, with the 1 week countdown finally beginning, is what would happen if we don't actually see Metroid at the press conference? Essentially, what this whole conversation and idea boils down to for me is really the concept of being prepared for us to maybe not see Metroid Prime 4 at E3 this year. Now, I'm not really staking my claim here one way or another on whether or not I think that's going to happen. I mean, I actually am leaning far more towards believing that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a part of Nintendo's presence this year than that it won't be, but you never really know. And because there's a lot riding on it for Metroid fans and for Nintendo fans, and definitely for me, I think that it's worthy of talking about. Also, if I'm being honest, as a super crazy Metroid dork that I am, part of this is also sort of me trying to protect my own feelings, so it's a little bit of a personal video in that respect, because a lot of you guys may think this whole concept and idea is really silly to even make a discussion about, but for me, it matters, man. Like, it carries a lot of weight. I am so invested in Metroid Prime 4, and when we finally see it, and I want it to deliver, like I know it's going to, and I want to believe that it's going to show up at E3 this year. And I even want to believe that I'm going to be wrong in my prediction that it's a 2019 game. I want to see Nintendo prove me wrong. I don't care if I'm right or wrong. I want to play this game as early as possible. I want it to come out frickin' tomorrow. I mean, that's really the dream scenario, but we all know that's not going to happen. So really, I'm just trying to protect my own feelings and emotions going into the show and make sure I don't get too hyped expecting to see the game when we might not. And then, of course, for a lot of you guys out there who might be really also counting on this game showing up, which I would think is probably most of you and most Nintendo fans, I want to protect everybody and just kind of get the idea out there, let the concept start rumbling around in people's heads that, hey, we might not see or hear anything from Metroid next week. So let's consider the worst case scenario. Let's consider Nintendo doesn't show Metroid Prime 4 next week at E3. If for whatever reason the game is completely silent, what is going to be the aftermath of that? And honestly, I think it's a pretty simple answer. I'm sure a lot of us can understand what's going on here. Basically, we'll still be left with a lot of mystery surrounding Metroid Prime 4. Obviously, one of the big things I think we would be able to take away if that happens is, as my prediction has been stating, which has only been a guess, just a guess from a fan, I think that will more than anything really solidify the fact that the game is a 2019 game, or even later. I mean, I really don't want to believe it's a 2020 game. I'm not crazy enough to put that out there. I truly feel like it's a 2019 game, or the slight possibility of the surprise 2018 release. That's really what I expect. And so, If the game is completely silent and it's just a ghost town in terms of Metroid information, I think that we're going to know, yeah, this game really probably is 2019. I could see a lot of other reactions where a lot of people start to get really negative or pessimistic about what might be happening with the game. I can see a lot of people start to spin and create a narrative, unless there's something else that proves this, but I could see people starting to create a narrative where there might be troubles behind the scenes and what's going on, why is this game disappearing, and people will probably start to say, oh, Nintendo, you promised we would see this game this year and we didn't see it at E3. You know, and again, I'm making up a scenario that hasn't happened, but typically we see those reactions come from things like that. And that would be another thing that probably wouldn't really be true because, again, just reminding everyone going into the show, Nintendo hasn't promised a dang thing about Metroid Prime 4. They just showed us the logo last year and said now in development. And like, hey, we'll tell you about it later when we're ready. So really, just the idea of Metroid Prime 4 even being at E3 is a fan-created notion, even myself. I expect it to be there a little bit, probably like 55-60% expecting it to be there, but that's just my own guesses and wishes as a fan. There's nothing that Nintendo has done to lead anyone to believe that they owe us Metroid Prime 4 info next week. Just because it's a very good chance that they will, because it's one of their biggest games we still know to look forward to, doesn't mean we need to expect it. So I also feel like people can hopefully not be too negative or down on Nintendo if it doesn't show up next week. I mean, I'm one of the first people who you would think would be mad about Nintendo not showing Metroid Prime 4, or upset that the game doesn't appear next week and we don't have information and gameplay and a release date. But really, again, there's no reason to believe that Nintendo is going to have the game there, especially if it really is a game that's set for next year and not this year. I mean, for me, it really boils down to I just want Nintendo to show us this game when it's ready. That's the way I think any game should be detailed, and we've seen plenty of examples over the years, man, where people and companies have shown games when they weren't really ready, and that's created a lot of problems in the aftermath. Some games never released, some games released in a very poor or broken state, other games released in a fine state but still didn't ultimately live up to the vision. I think of games like Watch Dogs and Destiny and stuff like that. Even though I actually really like both of those games, they also didn't really deliver on what was being promised early on, and I think that's a fair thing to say. And with Metroid Prime 4, I definitely don't want that to happen. None of you guys out there want it to happen, no matter how badly some of you might want and expect the game next week, and some people might be so crazy pissed at Nintendo if it doesn't show up and they're going to feel cheated and lied to. I mean, the only reason Nintendo wouldn't show it next week is if the game is A, really far off, like 2020 or beyond, or B, if it's just simply not ready. I mean, let's think about one of the things that makes Nintendo so fantastic, and one of the reasons a lot of us like them, is they don't show games when they're not ready. They never show them too early. I mean, heck, they normally never even tease games so early, and last year was a great example where they decided, hey, it's worth it to tease a game for the future, like Metroid Prime 4, here's a tease, but they didn't show anything. They didn't show any early renderings and early gameplay and stuff that might be not indicative of the final product, and maybe not looking or running as well as they know the final game is going to be, and so they don't show any of that stuff, whereas many other companies, they will do that, and a lot of times it's to the detriment of the game and the final product. Nintendo doesn't do that, and I don't want them to do that with Metroid Prime 4. When it's ready, and when Nintendo themselves are ready, is when I think that they need to show us this game. Don't throw it on E3 next week just because it's E3 and you feel compelled like you have to. Only do it if it makes sense to do it. And I mean, luckily, I fully back and have faith in Nintendo here because they don't usually make these kinds of mistakes. And so I feel like whatever they're going to do with Metroid, whether it's to show it next week or wait till a Nintendo Direct later in the year, or even wait till next year to show it, I think it's going to be the right thing to do for the game, and that's why they're so good at what they do. Now, of course, it's also pretty fun to imagine what happens if they do show the game next week, and that's the real thing we all want to see happen. And, you know, like I said, I'm erring just a little bit more, like 55-60% on the side of believing that they probably will show it. I'm not making it like a hard prediction yet, but I might do that. I might state my actual hard prediction later this week in a video before the show. But I'm definitely leaning towards believing that the game is going to appear in some way. But I've said before that could be either A, because the game is going to release this year, or B, because they are going to be comfortable just giving a slight tease of a 2019 game, and that game could very likely be Metroid Prime 4. That's my ultimate thinking here. But anyway, let's go back to the scenario where they do actually show us the game next week. There's a lot of different ways that could happen, man. They could give us a 30 or 60 second quick gameplay preview and say, okay, that's all you get for now, we're going to share more later. They could blow the whole thing open, man. Like I said on my Q&A a couple days ago, they could just open the floodgates on Metroid, and just like we expect them to do for Smash Brothers, also do the same for Metroid. Now, to be fair, I really think that that's more likely going to happen with Fire Emblem than Metroid. We already know Smash is like set. That's confirmed. We know what they're doing with Smash. They're going to give us all the details. It's going to be great. But then there's also Fire Emblem, which I think they're going to do similar things with, Would they also do it with Metroid? I mean, probably not. I think that they're really just going to tease the game this year, if anything, but you never know. And so if they show it, they might say, here's a gameplay trailer, here's a cinematic trailer, here's the setup of the story and the conflict happening within it, here's how it's a sequel to Metroid Prime 3, why are we calling this game Prime 4? Well, here we're going to tell you why that's the case, and then give us a release date, show us new features. Like, you know, I've said before, I expect a lot of Joy-Con support and really cool HD rumble and motion control things happening in the game, and they would probably show those kinds of things. So those are the two ends of the spectrum, where they show us almost nothing but just a little tease, or they show us just about everything to get us really hyped. And to be fair, I really only expect the floodgates to be opened if the game turns out to be a 2018 game. You know, and I'll say this for the 1 millionth time. Yes, I'm stating I think that it's a 2019 game, but I absolutely acknowledge that I could be wrong. This game might be 2018, and every day I'm waiting for Nintendo to confirm that and prove me wrong, and I just can't wait. So yeah, that's what it really comes down to for me, man. I just feel like we can get so caught up in just getting excited for E3 and having very high expectations for any company, for all of the companies. Definitely for Nintendo, we're all guilty of that, myself as well, man. I've definitely done it in the past, and I'm close to doing it this year, but I'm trying not to, which is why I made a video about what our expectations for Nintendo at E3 this year should be, and maybe to not expect the greatest show ever, so that we're either A, not disappointed, or B, pleasantly surprised when it turns out to maybe be that. And so when it comes to Metroid Prime 4, I kind of think that's what I'm doing here, both for my benefit and your guys' benefit as well. Like I said, there's a really good chance the game doesn't show up. Nintendo might not be ready to show this game, and let's just be ready for that to be okay. I don't think that anyone should be pulling out their pitchforks ready to go after Nintendo and Reggie and everybody and say, oh, you ruined my E3 week, you ruined the show, you're screwing up Metroid Prime, you're screwing up everything because you didn't show us the game. How dare you, Nintendo? We deserved for you to show us this game. And like, I don't really believe any of that would be true, so I think it would be unfair if people react that way. And I think even the reason I did this, now that I think about it, is almost trying to get ahead of that, because it's just sadly so common that it's already rolling around in my brain that something like that might happen. And it's kind of sad when you think about it that that's the way we kind of think about stuff and the things that we expect sometimes, but you know, it is what it is. I know that most of you guys out there wouldn't be that way. I have a really fantastic audience. You guys are super cool and level-headed, and I always appreciate that. And that's, you know, I'm just trying to pass some of that level-headedness on. But also, let's be real, man. I super want the game to show up next week. I really, really want it to show up. You know, and I just, you know, I'm starting to believe every day more and more that it's probably going to be something that we do see or hear from at the show next week. But hey, you never know, man. That's what E3 is about. It's about surprises. This year has been a weird year for E3 when it comes to surprises, because so much crap has been leaking, and so much of it is turning out to be true, and companies are having to jump ahead of the leaks and just reveal the game basically before E3, and it's just so weird. It's such a strange time. I actually have a theory on why that's happening, and it might make sense for a different video than to talk about here, but either way, that's what's up with Metroid Prime 4. I think that's what we can expect if the game isn't detailed or shown or discussed at all next week. So let's just cross our fingers and hope that this conversation was really a moot point, and that Nintendo is going to show the game and discuss it in whatever fashion, and hopefully that will just get us excited for whenever this game is going to finally come to us. And if that doesn't happen, it is what it is, man. Nintendo's a smart company. They want Metroid Prime 4 to be the best it can be, so they're only going to show it to us when it's ready, whether that's next week, next month, or next year. That's it for me today. Thanks, of course, always so much for tuning in, guys. I always appreciate your support of Rule of 2 Review. The E3 countdown begins. 7 days to go. Holy frickin' cow. Cannot wait. So that is it for me today. Please discuss Metroid Prime 4, what you expect from the game, what you don't expect from the game. Do you think it's going to be there? Do you think it won't be there? Are you going to be mad? Are you going to be glad? Whatever you're going to feel, all opinions are welcome. And that is it. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.